In 1492, Christopher Columbus, a Genoese sailor, stood on the deck of the Santa Maria, gazing into the unknown Atlantic. With two small ships, the Pinta and the Niña, he set out from Spain, hoping to reach Asia by sailing west. Most believed the only way to the Indies was east, but Columbus was convinced he'd found a shortcut. Backed by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, who sought new trade routes for spices and gold, Columbus promised a faster path to Asia. He underestimated the size of the world and had no idea 2 continents blocked his way. The sailors, gripped by fear and hope, faced weeks of endless ocean, worried about monsters, starvation, and the unknown. The journey dragged on, longer than Columbus had claimed, and the crew nearly mutinied. But Columbus's stubborn belief kept them going. After more than 2 months, land appeared. Not Asia, but a small Caribbean island. Columbus hadn't reached the east, but he had connected worlds that had been separate for millennia. This accidental encounter marked the start of a new era in human history. It was the beginning of a global story, where people, ideas, and cultures would mix in ways no one could have imagined. The world map would never be the same. Columbus's voyage was a turning point, not just for Europe, but for the entire planet. The age of global connection had begun. While Columbus sailed, Europe was transforming. If you know everything about history, subscribe. In Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella had just completed the Reconquista, uniting their kingdom and fueling their ambitions. Their victory gave them the resources and confidence to back Columbus's risky plan. Across Europe, kings in England and France were consolidating power, competing for land, trade, and influence. This rivalry pushed nations to seek new routes and riches overseas. The Renaissance was in full bloom. Artists, scientists, and thinkers were challenging old ideas and spreading new ones, thanks to the printing press. Curiosity and ambition drove explorers like Columbus to venture into the unknown. But Europe was also a continent of conflict, wars, shifting alliances, and growing challenges to the Catholic Church's authority. The seeds of the Reformation were being sown. Europe in 1492 was restless, ambitious, and ready to reach beyond its borders. The world was about to change, and Europe was determined to lead the way. Columbus's voyage was just one part of a much larger transformation. The modern era was dawning. Asia's great empires thrived in their own worlds. In China, the Ming dynasty ruled a vast, prosperous land, with cities like Beijing and Nanjing at the center of culture and trade. Earlier, the Ming had sent Zheng He on epic voyages, but by 1492 they turned inward, believing China was self-sufficient. In India, a patchwork of kingdoms and sultanates vied for power and wealth. The Delhi Sultanate in the north was weakening, while the Vijayanagara Empire in the south flourished, trading spices and cotton. India's riches drew European dreams of direct trade. In Japan, civil war raged as powerful daimyo fought for control, leaving the emperor with little real power. The Sengoku period kept Japan focused inward, not on distant oceans. These Asian empires were powerful, complex, and largely unaware of the European ships crossing the Atlantic. Their priorities were stability, trade, and internal affairs, not exploration. The world's great civilizations were on separate paths, each with its own story. Yet the age of global connection was about to reach them too. Columbus's voyage would eventually ripple across even the most distant empires. The world was about to shrink. Change was coming whether they sought it or not. In 1492, Africa was a continent of powerful kingdoms and vibrant trade. The Songhai Empire in West Africa was a center of wealth, learning, and commerce, with Timbuktu renowned for its scholarship. Gold from West Africa fueled economies across Europe and the Middle East. The Kingdom of Congo and the Swahili city-states thrived on trade, connecting Africa to Asia and beyond. Along the Nile, the Christian kingdom of Alodia endured, while Portuguese explorers built trading posts along the coast. Africa was deeply connected to global trade networks, not isolated as some believed. But European arrival marked the start of a new, often tragic chapter, one that would soon include the Atlantic slave trade. Africa's story was rich and complex, shaped by both internal achievements and growing outside pressures. The world was drawing closer, for better and for worse. In 1492, the Middle East was dominated by the Ottoman Empire, which had recently captured Constantinople and controlled vital trade routes. The Ottomans' grip on overland trade made Asian goods expensive in Europe, fueling the search for new sea routes. The Mamluk Sultanate in Egypt controlled Cairo and the holy cities, but its power was waning as the Ottomans rose. These empires were centers of culture, commerce, and religion, shaping the flow of goods and ideas between continents. The fall of Granada in Spain sent Muslim and Jewish refugees east, many welcomed by the Ottomans. This movement of people and knowledge showed how interconnected the world already was. Events in one region could reshape lives thousands of miles away. The Middle East was both a crossroads and a barrier, driving Europeans to look for new paths. Columbus's voyage was a direct response to these shifting powers. The world's stories were already beginning to intertwine. Before Columbus, the Americas were home to millions, with civilizations as rich and complex as any in the Old World. In North America, diverse societies farmed, hunted, and built thriving communities. The Aztec Empire in Central America ruled from Tenochtitlan, a city of canals and pyramids. The Incas in South America built vast networks of roads and ruled from the Andes, their emperor seen as a living god. These civilizations had their own science, art, and religions, but no knowledge of Europe, Asia, or Africa. They lacked horses, steel, and immunity to old-world diseases. The arrival of Columbus would unleash catastrophic change, disease, conquest, and upheaval. Two worlds, long isolated, were about to collide. The consequences would be profound and irreversible. The Americas were not empty, they were vibrant, and their story was about to change forever. In 1492, the world was a patchwork of separate stories. Europe was driven by competition, religion, and the hunger for wealth, sending explorers outward. Asia's empires focused on stability and internal affairs, confident in their own greatness. Africa's kingdoms thrived on trade and learning, connected by ancient roots. The Americas were isolated, their civilizations unaware of the world beyond their shores. Each continent lived its own history, shaped by unique ambitions and challenges. Columbus's voyage was the spark that began to weave these stories together. After 1492, the world's separate tales became one tangled global narrative. Trade, disease, conquest, and exchange would link every corner of the planet. The age of isolation was ending. The world was becoming one, sometimes violently, always irreversibly. The threads of human history were now forever intertwined. Understanding 1492 means seeing a world already full of complexity, power, and culture. If you know everything about history, subscribe. Columbus's voyage was just one event in a global story of empires, kingdoms, and civilizations. The Columbian Exchange began, a movement of people, plants, animals, and ideas that reshaped every continent. New foods transformed diets, horses changed lives, and diseases devastated populations. The search for wealth led to conquest, colonization, and the Atlantic slave trade. 1492 was a turning point, the start of globalization and the modern world. When we remember Columbus, we should also remember the wider world he helped connect. The roots of our shared history run deep, shaped by every corner of the globe.